make it okay for Mohammed, Rahmatul Alameen, Khatam al-Anbiya, to sleep with 9 years old?
Who you are?
Have sex with 9 years old?
Who you are to talk about Muhammad like this?
He was like that. He was like that. He slept with Ayesha at the age of 9.
Okay, it doesn't matter.
It does matter.
9 years it look like.
Doesn't matter?
Listen, 9 years it look like 14 years old.
Would you do that?
14 years old.
My friend,
Look
would
at
you
the
do that?
village. It's the same as the
Would you do that
city.
then in the village?
City women.
Would you engage in that? Huh? Well, exactly. So it's wrong. You wouldn't do it. Would you
Not
marry
in
a
this
9-year-old?
time, not in this
Okay,
time, not in
30
the
years
city.
ago, would you do
Go
it?
to the village and you will see.
Would you do it today?
No, in the village and I will see a woman able to be
At 9.
and she has a monthly period.
At 9.
Okay, everything.
At
You
9
can
years
marry
old.
her. You can marry her.
Would you do that?
Of course. Why not? If she is able, why not? What are you waiting for? 18 years old. You're writing a law.
What's your name, my friend?
There is no law in that time.
What's your name,
I'm
my friend?
telling you.
What's your name?
What make women?
Okay.
Listen,
this simple.
don't stop me
Whenever,
talking.
no, listen very
Don't
carefully.
answer my question.
When it comes
What
to
make
marrying
women
people, right?
able to marry?
Specifically women,
Answer
right?
my question.
You can't just
What's
start
able
calling somebody
women
a
to marry?
woman
What's
when they
able?
start going through puberty.
Look.
Normally, you reach the end first before you can call them a woman. Okay?
See how
right?
we run away from
Because
my
in the
question?
exact same way
What's
that
make
when you
women
start
able
going to
marry?
school, you have to finish school first before you can say
Finish
you
school.
graduated. Right?
Finish
It's not
school to get married. Look,
No,
finish
listen very
school to
carefully.
get married.
Listen to my example.
No.
Listen
You
to
have
the
no example.
Both of you are saying
There is no
that
example.
it's okay to marry somebody who is 9 years old if they have started puberty. I am telling you that it is best practice to wait until the end of puberty before you can marry them. Right? Because when you marry somebody who is too young, it's bad for their health if you ever engage in sexual activity with them. You can kill them.
How many girlfriends you have?
No.
How many girlfriends you have?
Okay, 0 of them are 9.
Ah, shut up, don't.
Yeah, so 0 of them are 9 years old. Now, you, my friend, like you three, would you marry a 9-year-old?
How many?
Would you marry a 9-year-old?
Would you? No.
Would you do it?
Would you marry a boy?
Sorry?
Would you marry a boy?
I would not.
Would you not?
Would you do that?
Your church is allowed.
Again,
Your church allowed.
No, it's
You're
allowed.
jumping.
Church allowed.
Explain to me why it is okay to marry a 9-year-old.
No, allowed for a girl to get
Why?
married, but allowed to a
Why
boy
is that
to
okay?
get married.
Why is that okay? Explain
Come
that.
on.
Any of you, explain why it is
As
okay.
long as she has a period, you can marry her.
Wait a
She's
second. Able to what? Able to what?
Able to hold the house.
At 9 years old.
Yes, not like you in the
Okay.
city. In the city you
Okay,
can't.
okay.
Living in a
So,
flat, no.
now, okay,
In the village
so you're
I'm talking
saying
about.
that in the
People
village,
before
a
different.
9-year-old
The
can hold
year,
the house.
the year between
Are
that
you
time
allowed
and
to
this
sleep
time,
with them?
5 years.
Can you sleep with
Age
them?
over.
Can you then sleep with them at 9? Is that allowed?
If she accepts or she's able.
What does a 9-year-old know about
You
sleeping
sleeping
with
with the boy and you're not sleeping with the girl?
Wait a
Come
second.
on.
You said it was okay because they can hold a house.
There is no sense. No sense. What are you
Can
talking?
you
No
sleep with
sense.
them?
No sense.
Okay, and then the last question. If you had a 9-year-old and a grown man wanted to marry them, would you say yes?
Can't say that for the girl and the boy. His name. When he come here, they say his name and she is our him. Don't know.
Again, if either of you had a 9-year-old,
I swear.
would you marry them off?
I swear to Allah.
Yes?
Listen, I
Yes?
swear to Allah.
What'd you swear?
1,000 of girls in this time in my country, they get married.
That's not good.
No good in you, with
That's
you.
not good.
Because you're
right?
living in a
Because
flat.
what that happens, the problem with that is very simple.
Wake up,
If you're
please.
marrying and sleeping with girls who are very, very young,
wake up.
unfortunately, the majority of them will die in childbirth. Because at that point in time, their bodies are not ready yet to bear children.
Who told you that?
Sorry?
She is able.
No,
her
no,
body
no.
is built.
That is not how it works.
Are you doctor?
Were you there
Are
1400
you
years
doctor?
ago?
Are you
Be a doctor
doctor?
Did you live 1400 years ago? How do you know how
Again,
times were back
and
then?
you come in.
I don't wanna be in the
Come in. in, come in.
I'm not hitting the camera.
A lot of
But you don't
people
use
here
your
want to
logic,
marry
common
9-year-olds.
sense.
How he
I like
lies.
this. Come in.
Look, I'm gonna put this
Explain
to bed.
yourself.
I'm gonna
She
put
give
this
a
to bed.
Explain yourself.
Listen.
I'm gonna put this
A
to bed.
nine and 10
Wait,
years
one
old,
second,
she
one
gave a
second.
birth
One
in my
second.
country. She
One
gave
second.
a
I know, I
birth.
know.
That's a bad thing.
He's from here,
That's
bro.
not good.
He's from here. He
Very
doesn't
bad
understand
thing.
how people are back
No,
home.
but don't worry. Explain to me.
Did the Prophet Muhammad, did he have enemies?
Okay.
Wait, did he have
Can you
enemies?
marry a 9-year-old?
You're not gonna answer
I
me,
don't
bro.
care about Muhammad.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
marry a 9-year-old.
Were you there 1400 years ago?
It doesn't matter if I was there
Answer my
14,000
question.
years
I will
ago.
answer the
Can
question.
you marry a
for you.
9-year-old?
I will answer the question.
You
for
had an objection to what I was saying.
I will answer
I
the
am
question
telling
for
you it's wrong.
He
Because
just
no
want to
9-year-old
argue. He just want to argue. He doesn't want
was
to.
buried in the
no
same
sense.
place.
Have you seen other countries?
He
How
think-
China?
He
not
thinks
safe.
all the
They
girls
have
are
very
the
high
same thing.
mortality
Same.
rates.
Answer my question.
Many people die in childbirth because they are
I'm
too
gonna
young
put this
in
to
those
bed
countries.
once and for all.
That's the issue.
Did the
Now,
Prophet-
is it okay?
I'll come to that, right?
I don't care
I'll
about
answer
the
that.
Prophet. I'm
Okay, I'll
asking
answer
you
that.
about
You want me
the
to answer that?
feasibility of marrying
You want me to
9-year-old
answer that?
and sleeping with
You want me
them.
to answer that?
Go ahead.
Okay, right? What's the question?
No,
Is it
listen,
okay to
listen,
marry
listen,
a 9-year-old?
I'm answering.
And then you told me you'd answer it,
Go on.
and then I finished, and then you want to hear it again.
Is it okay to marry a 9-year-old
Is it
at the
okay,
time back
and
then?
would you do it?
Would I do it if I was back then? Yeah. I would do it back then, yeah.
listen.
Why would you do it back then? Why?
Because it was okay back then.
Yeah.
Okay,
Now
okay.
let me ask you that.
So,
Let me ask you
because something
Let
is
me answer.
okay in a time period, you would do it. So, for example,
Can I answer
if you existed in the age before Islam, you would be worshiping rocks because everyone was doing it. Is that what you're saying?
Listen. No, wait.
You just-
Wait.
Exactly.
Listen.
Now can you answer? Let me ask the question.
No, both of you.
Can I
No,
ask the question?
listen.
Did the Prophet Muhammad, did he have
No,
enemies?
listen.
One second. I'll let you answer. Did the Prophet Muhammad, did he have enemies?
What does this have to
Did he
do?
have enemies? Did any of his prophets, did any of his
What
enemies?
does this have to do?
I'll tell you, I'll answer this question for you.
Marrying a
Listen.
9-year-old.
Have a bit of patience, my
Listen.
friend.
Okay, so wait.
Did any of
are you
his
gonna-
enemies call him a pedophile?
Okay.
Are you talking about the
Finish.
law?
Finish. Are you
Here is
sure?
the issue.
Are you talking about the Britain law?
Exactly.
You're talking about the Britain law. I respect that
I
you
put
not
this to bed
marry
once and
9
for
years
all.
old.
There
In
you
the
go.
law
There you
of
go.
Britain,
In
not
UK,
allowed to
girls
marry
get
9
married at a
years
young
old.
age. You got
But
all the
anywhere.
British people.
Listen.
English people,
Anywhere,
they
it's
want
wrong everywhere.
pedophiles, that's wrong.
You
The logic is
finished? You
stupid.
finished?
Are you finished?
Pathetic.
No,
I asked you a question you didn't answer. I asked you, would you give your 9-year-old into marriage? Would you ever let your 9-year-old get married?
Listen,
to a grown
I'm going to
man.
answer you.
Let me hear it.
If I live in that time, I will get married from a 9 years old or my daughter to marry from 9 years old and the 9 years old.
But you would do today, yeah?
A thousand years
But not
back.
today. But not today.
But not today.
Yeah, okay.
Listen.
All right. So then that means that by what you're saying, the sunnah of Muhammad from 1400 years ago does not apply today. That's what you're saying.
Listen,
That was wrong.
because the girls in that time is different than the girls now.
Okay, how Explain how. Explain.
If you go now
Yes.
to my country,
Okay.
you will find the village girl
Okay.
in the 9 and 10 and 12 years old
Okay.
can get married.
Okay.
Number of years,
As a 9-year-old, there's no difference
But
on what
below there is not allowed.
What is the difference in the development? They are still the same.
That's
everybody
what
here.
I'm saying to you,
And
but
to
we
make it
don't
worse,
understand.
to make it
The
worse,
development
here's the issue.
and
When you
absorb-
live back home and you're in a
Listen.
village, right, you might not have access to great food
Listen,
and great
as
health
long
care.
as the
So in
girl
fact,
is
you might
able
even
and
be
she has
happier
a
in the village
opinion,
and you'll be here.
there is a 12 years old that can get the
That's
pregnant
not a
and
good
get a
thing. That's
birth.
dangerous for
But
them.
are you telling lies?
That is dangerous
You
for them.
allow
That's not a
yourself to
good thing.
sleep with the
Okay,
boy.
now,
but not
again,
sleep
I
with the
asked you a
girl.
question,
Well,
and your answer was that 1,000 years ago you would, but today you won't. So that means that you are admitting that Muhammad was wrong for what he did back then.
According to you, if that's pedophile, then all the people 100 years ago in UK, all the men are pedophile, according to you. Logic, that's your logic.
That
I don't use
1,000 years
logic.
ago, he would give his daughter into marriage at 9 years old.
believe you
But
guys
today he
don't
wouldn't.
understand.
Why? Because that means that clearly there's an issue with giving a 9-year-old into marriage. If you would do it back then, but not today, is a problem.
Because I said you.
Stop hating on Allah. Simple.
You know what I'm going to answer. You know what I'm going to answer.
Your answer is wrong.
Because you
you're
live in the
saying-
flood.
No.
Those people live in the village.
While
They
in the
are not
village,
able.
maybe
They are not
they have to
able.
go through
Yes,
different
not
circumstances
able. Everybody
far
is
as
not
development,
using
it is the
easier
same.
like this.
When you go to a village, listen, when you go to a village, do you see a 9-year-old
How you allow yourself to sleep with the boy?
Brother, when you go to the village, do you see a 9-year-old with white hips in the village? No, you don't. My friend, come back to me. You're wrong about this one.
I'm from Bangladesh, right? My background in my country, right?
Well, no, wait, that's it though. Okay, you. So, 1,000 years ago, you got a name? What's your name, bro? Ali. And David, right? Now,
Don't record me, man. I don't want to be in this camera stuff.
don't record it. Now, Ali, you are trying to tell me that 1,000 years ago it was okay to marry a 9-year-old, but today it's not, right? Now, there's two problems with this. 1,000 years ago, as you were aware, dietary restrictions, right, were a little bit more difficult back then. You didn't have ample access to meats and fish and greens, depending on where you lived. So now, if you're telling me that even back then, when people mostly ate grain, for example, if you were in Europe, that back then it was okay for you to marry them, when in fact they will be more malnourished than a 9-year-old today. And my friend, you're incredibly wrong. They'll be tinier than a 9-year-old today.
That's your understanding.
Okay,
Like I said,
now,
I put it to bed. If the Prophet had enemies, people would have called him names, him getting married. This is it. That puts the whole
people
thing to
did
bed.
call him
That's
names,
it.
and he
No,
killed them as
didn't.
a result.
What? They called him what?
They called him many names,
Okay.
and he had them
Right,
killed.
they called him many names,
right?
but did they ever call the P word?
Now,
Did they ever call him a pedophile? No.
how do I
You find
know?
that, bro.
How,
I'll come
no,
to finger
that
that.
doesn't mean anything.
Listen.
It doesn't matter what they called him. It matters what
End
he
of the day,
did.
I'm not having a
right?
discussion.
Again,
If you
I
can't
don't care
understand-
about Mohammed. I am asking you, is it okay ever to marry a 9-year-old?
He just said no one. in the world
Now you're
will
saying
be
ever.
pedophile.
Now you're looking at the whole thing.
Is it ever
From the
okay?
beginning of the world.
Is it
to
ever
now.
okay?
What, in
Is it good practice? Is it encourageable? Would you do it?
I can't answer that. How am I going to answer
Alrighty.
that? How am I going to
I
answer
say
that in
it's
the
wrong.
beginning? Because laws were different back then.
I say it's wrong.
That's fine. But I'm telling you, laws were different back then.
For example,
What's the law of a girl to get married in this country?
I will not encourage it.
Okay, what's the
Right?
law in this country?
Okay,
You said rather than religion. You're speaking about Islam or the law of the land?
when you're
He's asking me
factoring, when
something.
you're
You're asking me
factoring the
something.
age of marriage into law, right? We at least consider the opinion of health professionals. No health professional will tell you that at the beginning of puberty for either a boy or a girl, that is a good idea for them to get married. Why? Because they're embarking on a 10+ year development cycle that will then end in their 20s. So nobody will tell you to get married at the beginning of a cycle.
Like I said, man, you're taking this thing to another thing. I'm telling you, you don't know how. it was
What
back
do
then.
you want me to say? Okay, now,
Okay, wait. Okay, what's the law in this country?
to delve very
What's
very
the law
quickly
in this
into Islam,
country?
right? So you're telling me,
Can I ask
I
you
don't
a
know.
question?
Wait, one second. You mean yesterday just now? You said I don't know what it was like back then. Okay, fine. Let us say, for brevity's sake, that every single person back then married 2-year-olds. If Muhammad is the prophet of Allah, why is he joining them in their bad behavior?
Okay, so now what's your question? Now you're saying if they were getting married 2 years old, would that be okay?
No, my question is, if everyone was doing it back then, but it's not encourageable today because we know it is wrong and dangerous for the girl or the boy to do that, if they were all doing it and acting immorally in that time period, why would Muhammad join them?
Why would he join them if there
Acting
was,
immorally.
Yeah, but again, you're doing that thing where you're comparing the time. from
Muhammad
back
is
then
supposed
and now.
to be
You're doing that thing
the
again.
best example for the Ummah for all
He is.
time,
He is.
including today.
He is, but you're doing that thing. You're going back 1400 years ago, 1500 years ago. You're comparing.
The Quran tells me to do so.
9 years old. Where you from? Are you from UK, man? Have you seen people in other countries? How girls are in other countries?
It's not good, it's bad.
Be quiet,
It's
man.
bad.
Honestly,
It's
be
bad.
quiet.
It's bad.
You should look at a 9 years old in another country, in a third world country, is mature than a girl.
No, wait. Wait a second.
You could go
Wait a
you
second.
can say what you
Wait a
want.
second.
What do you guys know? What do you know?
Ali.
A female can make her life. She doesn't probably.
Wait, I didn't say that.
Ali, here is the issue. Yes,
guys have a big
maybe
issue, man.
potentially in other countries there might be
Again, you're doing
girls
that
and
thing, I
boys.
just answered the thing.
It's
It's not
not
me
human
answering, but you're going back to the
Ali,
same question.
Ali, in certain countries in the world, there may be girls and boys who have to assume higher responsibility because of circumstances they can't control. However, development-wise, they don't grow faster if you're in like, I don't know, like somewhere in India compared to here.
Honestly, how do you know the development back then? It was different. How do you know about all this stuff?
A
How do you know?
9-year-old.
So wait.
Yeah, but I'm saying development,
Okay.
right? He said about
Wait.
how do you know?
9-year-old's a 9-year-old.
Look, who can?
0 to 9.
1,000 years ago,
Yeah,
were they
how do you know a
humans?
development
1,000
from
years
9 years
ago,
old?
were they humans on the
9-year-olds
planet?
were 16-year-olds 1,000 years ago.
No, I'm not.
You're justifying it. You're justifying
I'm not
it.
just.
Ali.
I'm not just finding. You don't understand what I'm saying.
Ali,
You
1,000
can't-
years
you can't
ago.
go all the way. You can't rewind all the way 1,500 years ago.
because there were
A 9 years old was a 9 years old the way it is today.
Yes.
It was even worse.
Okay, do you have
They
any
were
proof of
even
that? Do you have
tinier.
any proof of that? So there you go, man. There you go. You don't have a proof of that.
What was
Brother.
a 9-year-old 2,000 years ago?
I don't know. You tell
Brother.
me.
A 9-year-old.
I don't know the answer, but you know. What, in the Bible, it says a 9 years old 2,000 years ago.
I can give you an example.
I'm not coming
There
from
you go.
religious
So don't
Ali.
say anything, man. There you go. If you don't have the answer,
Ali.
just be respectful. Just be
Ali,
respectful.
I can give you an answer very easily.
A 5-year-old, a 9-year-old, in 5,000 times, if they're 9 years old, they'll be 9 years old. It doesn't matter.
And you don't think the mindset is going to be different?
The mindset doesn't matter. It doesn't
How
matter.
do you know that? How do you know that?
It doesn't matter.
Anyways, I'm going to stick with these things.
Ali,
How old are you? How old are you?
It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant.
How old are you?
Let me answer.
How
Let me
old are
Would you
answer.
marry a 10-year-old girl?
How old?
He's
How
asking
do
me
you
a
know how
question.
old
I've got like, he's got to ask me a question. Would you marry a 5 years old?
I will never do that.
Okay, there you go then.
Would you marry a 9-year-old?
Again, you're doing that thing.
I'm
Of
asking
course,
you.
I'm going to say no
You
to
said no.
it because time has changed. But back then, my brother, it was normal. It was a normal longevity and all this stuff. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. If you don't think it, that's fine. But look, I'm telling you, that's how it was back then.
Nowadays,
Right?
transgender is normalized. Is that okay?
Look up in history. Longevity back then, people didn't live that
A
long.
9-year-old 2,000 years ago was 16.
Ali,
Longevity, do you understand the
You don't
longevity?
need to
The
defend
girls
this.
were getting married at a younger age, right? Yeah. So,
Still 9.
yeah, so you're doing that thing again, 9 years old. Again, you're comparing the time back then and now. You asked me, would I marry a 9 years old today? Would I marry a 9 years old today? Of course not. But back then it was normal. And I put it to bed and I told him, did the Prophet have any enemies? Because yes, Prophet had enemies. So how come none of the Prophet ever called him a pedophile? Because it was normal, my friend. 100 years ago. Listen, are you English? Are you English, my friend?
That's not a good argument.
100 years ago, yeah, girls in this country.
That's not a good argument.
Alright, Christianity, Islam, put them aside.
Because technically Muhammad had slaves.
In this country,
And none of his enemies ever called him a slave owner.
that's a different topic.
No, it's the
You're
same
moving
thing.
on to a different
Listen, again,
I just
just
heard a
because
9-year-old
no one called him out for his bad behavior doesn't mean he didn't do it.
You know, you talk about hadith. I don't know about hadith. Don't tell me someone who
Ali.
knows hadith. No, I don't know about hadith and stuff like that.
Ali, we
Someone who
can
knows
come to a
about
very
hadith.
easy end on this, right? You
I know
don't
Muslim, so I
have,
know hadith and all that.
Ali, it's this simple. You don't have to defend this.
If I tell you I don't know something, I don't know something. But at least I'm respectful. I'm telling you I don't know something. So I'm not going to make up lies like you guys do.
We're not making up lies, Ali. It's all coming from your own sources. Right?
I don't know who I'm asking. You're asking me a question,
It's
right?
simple, Ali. You don't have to defend this. You don't have to, right? You can simply say it's wrong. It's fine.
Look, 100 years ago, yeah?
I'm not
You're giving hadith. You want me to give you? You want me to quote your Bible? You want me to quote something from the
Go
Bible?
for it.
Come on,
If you
man.
want to. That's fine.
Stick with one topic. He's asking a question. That's fine. Look, I don't expect you to understand that, right? Fine, right? I'm telling you what it is. That's it is. It is what it is.
Here's the problem, Ali. You're defending something that's indefensible, right? You're not supposed to defend this stuff. It's clearly bad, right? So just because you follow a person who
comparing
did
the
these
time
things,
from that time.
okay. Now, here are the two problems with that. Your Quran tells me to do this. Your Quran tells me that Muhammad is the best example for the Ummah for all time,
Okay.
including this time.
Does the Quran say
right?
that you should get married to a 9-year-old today?
Okay, now, the Quran tells you that it's okay for you to divorce somebody who hasn't yet gone through puberty. So, who doesn't go through puberty?
That's not what I asked.
People
you.
who are below
Now you're talking about
9 years
divorce
old.
from that. Right, now you're asking about
No,
divorce.
so you see, if the Quran tells me that I can divorce somebody who hasn't yet gone through puberty, what does that mean? That I'm marrying somebody who hasn't yet gone through puberty. Normally, those are kids.
I don't know about all that stuff.
Okay,
right?
well,
But let's stick
you
with the
asked me if
subject.
the Quran told you, I'm telling you what the Quran says.
No, but what was my question
Okay?
just then? That's you're talking about.
You asked
divorce.
me if the Quran allows you to marry a 9-year-old,
Yes.
and I'm telling you that the Quran allows you to divorce somebody who hasn't yet gone through puberty. So what would be the primary cause for somebody not going through puberty yet? They haven't reached that stage in the development.
Yeah, but the main thing, look, I
Right?
get that, right?
Okay.
But you're missing the main
So
point.
Ali, again, I'm trying to tell you, you don't need to defend this. It is clearly wrong, it is clearly evil.
Listen, I'm not defending because I'm a Muslim. I'm not defending
Well,
because I'm a Muslim.
you
I'm
are.
defending this because
I
it's just
guarantee
logic,
you,
my friend.
if you take a poll
It's
of
logic,
people,
my
right,
friend.
who aren't Muslim, 0 of them will defend this. but somehow when you get to the Muslims, they all want to defend it.
Listen, even if
Do I have any non-Muslims here by any chance? Anyone? Is it okay to marry a 9-year-old? Is it okay to marry a 9-year-old?
back
Okay,
then,
cool.
back then,
Alright.
not that 9 years old today. I'm saying back then. Was
Is
there
it okay to marry a 9-year-old 10,000 years ago?
Without religion being involved or anything. You know, this is just age. Just talking about
how do you, like I said again, you don't know how it works back then. People were getting married at a younger age.
Likelihood of them dying is really, really high.
a 10-year-old and a 10-year-old. Maybe.
No?
It was different. It was different. You can look it up. It's different.
The
People were
problem,
getting married
so now,
at a younger
the
age.
problem,
I don't have a problem with that. Not because I'm defending Islam or anything. I don't have a problem with that. Even if I wasn't a Muslim, I would still defend Muslims. I would say, you know what? I do know how back
simple.
People nowadays have normalized LGBTQ, transgender. It's okay, it's good to do it. You don't think it's okay
you have in
to
your church, but you have a problem.
We don't do that, we don't do that.
but unfortunately, because
You try to bring an LGBT thing group into the mosque, you see what happens.
We don't do that. We don't do that.
You don't agree with it, you guys not doing anything about it.
Because we're not violent. We
I'll
can't
hit
pretend
them
shit with love.
next
What do you mean violent? I'm saying, you're missing the point.
And,
if they're
Ali,
bringing all these drag queens and that dance in your church, right, you guys should do something. Well, of course you're going to say you don't agree with it. I do the same thing, we don't agree with it. But the thing with us, right, we
drag
have
queens, where do we go?
He's asking me something else about it.
The last thing I'll say on this alley is the
fine,
problem remains. Well, no. Here's the issue. If you go back further in history, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, you will find that people were very, very malnourished and tiny, right? Do you want to have proof of this? For example, we're here in England, right? There's many old buildings here that are hundreds of years old. For example, St. Paul's Cathedral, right? The higher you go in St. Paul's Cathedral, the older it is, right? Because it's been like redeveloped multiple times. I've been to the top of the spire. They have doors up there, right? But do you know how tall the doors are? This tall. I had to bend down to go inside of it, right? Now, why is this? It wasn't for kids, but it's for fully grown men who were working on the building. So if only 500 years ago, the average height of a man in Britain was 5'5", can you imagine in the deserts 1400 years ago how big a 9-year-old would have been?
Not really, because there was another period. According to Islam, there was a period where there was of the giants. There was in the time of one of the prophets,
Make
there was
believe.
giant, right?
That's
fine, but that's not religion,
that's
right?
make believe, right?
But also,
That's make believe.
also our prophet Muhammad.
Because show me one giant bone.
But let me
One.
tell you, right? Do you know anything about Umar? Right? Umar was a big guy.
Yeah, a big guy in his time was probably like a small guy in our time, because they didn't have ample access to foods and proteins that would let them grow large. For example, even today, are Arabs the biggest people on the planet, even today? No. So imagine even back then. It's even worse.
Well, you can't say that as a whole thing. Like people.
What causes growth? Nutrition.
Yeah, I know, but you can't say as a whole thing that people was tiny back then.
They were probably very, very small back then.
I disagree. But anyways.
Okay. Were any of the Sahaba 7 foot tall? Any of them? Any? This is just one.
No, it's not.
Okay. You know why?
But because we don't have everything of how tall was this person. That's not the point of
Is
the
there
whole
any
story.
reference? Was any of them as tall as a camel?
I don't know about stuff like that, about hadith or something.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
The problem, my friend, is that wherever you go, even when you supposedly have Muhammad's clothes in museums in Saudi Arabia, tiny.
I wouldn't say it's tiny, but okay.
Well, for a fully grown man, right? You're basically probably bigger than him. Likely he was 5'5" or below.
No, it wasn't.
He likely was.
It wasn't.
How tall was he?
I don't know how tall he was, but he wasn't below 5'5" or 5'5".
How would you know that? That was probably like an average back then.
We're going back there.
Okay.
You're going to
now,
one person.
Now,
If it's not him, then
my overall point will be that if you go back further in time, people were tinier. So if you go back further in time and you're marrying 9-year-olds, that's even worse.
So you think 9 years old back then was small?
Was even tinier, even more malnourished,
That's fine,
even more
that's
unhealthy than a 9-year-old today.
Because of the doors back then was small.
That's just one indicator of how big men were. Men, not even girls. Men.
According to us, thing, it wasn't good. Men wasn't small. They weren't tiny. They weren't short. Everyone's different in here. Look, you're a tall guy, right?
Would I be this tall if I was born 1,000 years ago? Probably not. I wouldn't have the right amount of calories.
Yeah, but you can't say that. You won't be that tall 9,000 years ago. It depends on the genes as well.
Look at the average height of anybody from that time period. For example, even here in this country, one of their very early kings was 6 foot tall, and they called him a giant. Because he was 6 foot tall. 6 foot.
6 foot what?
6 foot, that's it. Today, who would you call a giant who's 6 foot tall?
Well, it depends on it. 6'5".
Because everybody else
7 foot
was way
yeah.
smaller than him, and now the standard has risen. So now for you 7 foot tall giants. So again, you do not have to
You make a
defend
good
the
point. I'll give you
idea.
that's a good point.
Okay.
But like I said, back then, 6 foot, it was considered giant, right?
Yes,
Let's
this
just say I
was
agree.
in,
Let's
this,
just say I
this
go
was
with that,
in the
right?
1000s,
Okay.
right? So you don't have to back up the idea or defend the idea that somebody slept with a 9-year-old and back then it was a good thing. It was a bad thing then, it was a bad thing then, it's a bad thing today. So if you're participating in it, and I am meant to follow you as an example for all time, I can't do that.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm just saying that we could agree to disagree, right? That's up to you. If you want to believe that, that's fine. But like I said, it's not.
No, you know, I'll be honest. I agree with him. I see where you're coming from. If people in the community, it wasn't immorally wrong back then. But I agree with him. Okay, no. So, yeah, so that's where he's coming from. He's meant to be an example.
Thank you. That's
No, for time.
Yeah.
But then why would he do it in that time? I see why he's asking.
Yeah.
Because he's meant to be a timeless for everyone.
Because I can give you examples of prophets in the Bible who there are people who were doing one thing and they didn't follow them doing it. So, for example, with Moses, his people worshiped idols. He didn't follow them and do it. Because everyone was doing it back then.
I'm with you.
Prophets need to stand at a higher standard than everybody else.
No, I'm with you on that.
If anything was wrong back then, yeah. Like for example, Sodom and Gomorrah, right? We have the story very similar to that, right? So obviously that land was full of gay people, right? Homosexual people. So obviously it was wrong. So obviously God sent messengers and all that stuff, and then obviously the punishment came, right? Long story short, punishment came, and then obviously I don't know what you guys do, how God destroyed. Yeah, obviously we do the same thing, right? The whole land got destroyed, right?
But do you see what the issue is? Your example is basically telling me that if Muhammad was there at the time, he would have just done it as well because everyone was doing it.
When you look into it as well, when he gave, when he asked, was Abu Bakr pregnant, he took Ayesha, right? Of course, right? So
Ayesha is the main
her
example.
hand in marriage, right?
She didn't say anything, apparently, and her silence was
Right,
seen as
but what-
compliance. That's horrible.
That's how you look at it, right?
And
Anyway,
also, she was
but
6,
also-
not 9. So it's even
Yeah,
worse.
but when did he consummate their marriage?
Allegedly, when she was 9. However,
but why do you think it was?
there's 2 explanations according to a tradition. Number 1 was that Abu Bakr took a while to give him his bride price. And it took 3 years before that. And then the other one is that in some of your fiqh books, depending upon your madhab, it's okay to marry a child and then you can do certain activities with that child in preparation of getting them ready for consummation. And I'm not even going to say what that is, but it's exactly.
Well, I'm
It's
telling
nasty.
you, there's a reason why he
Nasty.
waited before he...
Well, none of those reasons that I've seen so far had to do with the idea that she wasn't, that it was best for her health, essentially, is what I'd say.
But can I ask something, right?
Go
Keep
ahead.
that aside, right? 100 years ago in UK, right? When guys were getting married to girls who were very young, what do you think?
Okay,
of that? Was that wrong too?
100 years ago, guys were not getting married to girls who were very young in the UK.
Maybe 10 years old, 11 years old, however old they were, but they were young.
So that's the first thing, right? It wasn't
Was that
happening
wrong?
that way.
Was that wrong?
And we have charts to even show you that was happening that way. Now, over time, as we have learned more about human biology and the ways in which we develop, we have gradually increased the age of marriage or the age of procreation, right? Because we're finding out that actually doing it earlier is not good for you. It's bad for your health and it increases mortality, aka death, of both the child and the mother. Why do you think, for example, in the last 100 years, as we've been increasing the age of marriage / sexual activity, that in tandem, our population has skyrocketed? Because now people aren't dying anymore in mass from having...
People have longer lives now.
Right,
People live over
but
100 years.
despite that, people aren't dying early anymore from childhood marriages. That activity is now relatively small compared to what it was 100 years ago, for example. So,
Or was it wrong? Was that made it wrong?